Seville, one of the most popular cities in Europe, where American universities send thousands of their female students every year, and one young, charming guide who called himself the Prince of Seville. For 10 years, he took American girls to Morocco, Lisbon, Gibraltar. His company was the leader in its niche. His social media, a textbook example of how to run a tourism business. And then one 19-year-old student, who had stayed silent about a trip to Tangier for 4 years, published a post online. Within weeks, more than 50 women came forward. Their stories matched almost word for word. How did one man operate in plain sight for years? And why did the system need so long to finally listen? Seville stopped being just a postcard tourist city a long time ago. This city has become one of the world's main hubs where American universities send their female students for a semester or a full year on study abroad programs. Every fall and every spring, hundreds of young women fly in from New York, California, Florida, Ohio. They are 18, 19, 20 years old. For most of them, this is the first long trip overseas without their parents. They barely know their way around a foreign country. They speak poor Spanish. They can't quite figure out the euro exchange rate, and they have no idea how the local service industry actually works. Seville sells them exactly what they're hoping for. Narrow orange tree streets, flamenco in the evenings, suntan smiles, cheap coffee shops, English language guidebooks. Programs like CIE and CEA, which most Americans go through, build a comfortable little world for these girls. Housing is arranged, lecture schedules are prepared, excursions are recommended. Everything is supposed to be vetted and safe. Inside this world, dozens of local tourism agencies operate. They hunt specifically for foreign students. They want clients with dollar-denominated cards, no connections in the city, and no habit of asking awkward questions. The exchange programs themselves rarely run a serious audit on contractors. Most of the time, glowing reviews from past seasons and a pretty website are enough. Among these agencies, one company really stands out. It's called Discover Excursions. It sells weekend trips to Morocco, Lisbon, Gibraltar, and southern Spain. Its flyers sit in student dorm rooms. Its links land in inboxes alongside the first week's class schedule. Its owner shows up at orientation meetings himself, helps the girls with their suitcases on day one, hands them oranges on the street. He presents himself as the perfect local guide. Young, charming, fluent in good English, always smiling. The students remember him fast. None of them, in those first weeks, asks a single question about who he really is. The reason is simple. The man behind the company knows how to make people like him. His name is Manuel Blanco Vela. He was born in Seville. He's about 30, with dark hair, an even tan, and a calm, confident voice. In his everyday life, he goes by Manuel, but for his American clients, he comes up with a flashier name. He introduces himself as Manu White. On social media, they call him something even bolder, El Príncipe de Sevilla, the Prince of Seville. This image works flawlessly for him. He builds Discover Excursions specifically for the foreign student audience. This is not an agency for families or retirees. This is a company for girls who want to see a lot, spend little, and feel grown up. The prices are below market. A weekend in Tangier or in Lagos, Portugal, costs 200 to 300 euros all inclusive. Transportation, hotel, excursions, sometimes even the first bottle of wine. For a student on financial aid, it's the perfect deal. The marketing is built smart. Blanco doesn't waste money on big advertising. He goes straight into the university programs. He cuts deals with exchange coordinators, gives discounts to dorm leaders, and gives free tours to girls who bring friends along. His flyers appear on dorm bulletin boards before a new group of students has even unpacked their suitcases. His page is recommended as the reliable option by those already in their second semester here. Social media completes the picture. The Discover Excursions page has hundreds of photos. In every single one, smiling American girls in Moroccan headscarves, on camels, on the beach in Lagos, on rooftops in Seville. Underneath, glowing reviews, 5-star ratings, phrases like best guide in Europe, like an older brother, the most amazing weekend of the semester. It all looks like an ideal young business. Within a few years, the company becomes a near monopoly in its niche. The name Manu White comes up in every other conversation between the new students, and nobody knows yet that this name has a very different side to it. A specific face appears in this story in the fall of 2013, when an American student named Gabrielle Vega flies into Seville. She's 19 years old. She's studying Spanish on an exchange program, and she wants to see as much of Europe as possible in one semester. She rents a room with a local family, takes classes, spends evenings out with other American girls she's met in the lecture hall. A couple of weeks in, she gets a recommendation for a tour to Morocco. Best weekend of the semester, say the ones who've already been. The tour comes from that very same company, Discover Excursions. Gabrielle and two friends book the trip to Tangier for late November. It's cheap. The program looks packed. A ferry across the strait, the markets, the old town, camels, dinner with live local music, 2 nights at a hotel. On the agreed-upon day, they arrive at the meeting point. The guide greets them himself. He smiles, introduces himself as Manu, jokes in a mix of Spanish and English, helps load suitcases onto the bus. On the road, he doesn't go quiet for a single minute. He tells stories about Moroccan bazaars, explains how to bargain, how to avoid the tourist traps, which phrases are worth learning. He shares mint tea from a thermos and Moroccan cookies. Gabrielle's friends laugh, take selfies with him, add him on social media right there in the bus. By the time the bus rolls into Tangier, the girls are completely relaxed. They feel like they got really lucky with their guide. He's attentive, experienced, speaks English. If anything goes wrong, he's right there. The unfamiliar city stops feeling scary. The trip goes smoothly, markets, tea in cafes, a drive into the mountains, selfies on camels in the desert. By the last evening, the girls feel like they've made friends with a local and seen the real country. That's when Manu suggests properly saying goodbye. Just hanging out in the girls' room, opening some champagne, playing some silly game so they'll have something to remember. It sounds completely harmless. In reality, the suggestion turns into Manu actually heading up to the room with the girls. He orders the champagne from room service himself, asks them to bring glasses, switches on a floor lamp instead of the overhead light, puts on music from his phone. The room becomes dim and cozy, like it's not a regular hotel room anymore, but a small private party. He pours the champagne and proposes a game. A simple one, the kind everyone knows. Truth or dare. At first, the questions and dares are completely innocent. Sing a line from a song, tell the funniest thing that happened in school. Pick your favorite dish. The girls laugh, feel relaxed. After a few rounds, the questions get a little more personal. First kiss, most awkward date. Who's your crush in the group? It still feels like ordinary chit-chat. Nobody is on alert. Gabrielle takes a few sips from her glass. After a short while, she feels a strange heaviness. Her head feels like cotton. The picture in front of her starts to blur. She blames it on tiredness and a long day. The feeling keeps building. Her friends seem fine. They've got that mild buzz that's normal for an evening. Gabrielle doesn't understand what's happening to her. She tries to stay in the conversation, but the words come harder and harder. The friends gradually drift over to their corner of the room, near the window, talking about their own thing. Manu stays closer to Gabrielle. At some point, she gets up to make it to the bathroom. Her legs barely hold her. She grabs at the wall. The bathroom door closes behind her. After that, Gabrielle has no coherent memory, just fragments. The sense of someone behind her. An attempt to push back, which her body no longer responds to. Darkness closing over the picture. In the morning, she'll try to fit those shards into one whole, and she'll understand that the game he started back in the bus had never been a game. In the morning, Gabrielle wakes up in her own bed, still wearing the same clothes she had on the night before. The first sensation is an empty head and a heaviness throughout her body. The second is that something very bad has happened, and she doesn't have a name for it yet. The memory comes back in pieces. The glass of champagne, the game, the bathroom, a dark figure behind her. Helplessness. She lies there for several minutes without moving, trying to convince herself it was a nightmare. She turns her head. Her friends are still asleep on the next bed. They didn't wake up during the night, didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. The guide left for his own room a long time ago. Gabrielle goes into the bathroom and stands under the shower for a long time. She feels heavy. Her body feels foreign. She closes her eyes and tries to reconstruct the full picture of the night, but black gaps yawn between the fragments. That scares her more than the memories themselves. She realizes that her consciousness was switched off on purpose. One explanation keeps spinning in her head. A strange state, nothing like ordinary drunkenness. She's no expert on medicine, but she feels intuitively that what happened to her that night wasn't an accident. When her friends wake up, Gabrielle stays silent. She's afraid to say out loud what she's thinking, afraid they'll ask why she went to the bathroom in the first place, afraid they just won't get it, afraid that putting it into words will make it final, real. Breakfast, packing up. The bus back to Seville. The guide acts as usual, smiling, joking, saying goodbye at the drop-off point, wishing everyone a good weekend, hugging each one. Gabrielle endures the hug because she doesn't know what else to do. He gets in his car and drives away. At home, she locks herself in her room and cries for several days. She doesn't go to the police, doesn't go to the program coordinator. She doesn't even know yet exactly what happened to her, but she knows for sure that she can't say it out loud. Gabrielle holds on to that silence not for several days, but for several years. She finishes her semester in Seville, returns to the States, finishes college. On the outside, everything is fine. Good grades, friends, plans for work. On the inside, anxiety that doesn't go away. Insomnia, nightmares in which the same dark figure walks into the same bathroom. She doesn't tell anyone, not her closest friend, not the campus counseling center. The words get stuck in her throat every time she thinks she might finally try. What kicks in is what therapists call the typical reaction in survivors: shame, guilt, fear of not being believed, fear of being blamed herself. Only several years later does she work up the nerve to tell her parents. It comes hard. The parents react the way they should. They support her. They cry. They suggest going to the police. Gabrielle flatly refuses. She explains that this happened in Morocco, that too much time has passed, that she has no evidence, that she doesn't want the publicity. The parents respect her decision and stay silent too. So, the story sinks into a private circle. And you can't call this Gabrielle's weakness. This is the system. A young woman in her early 20s who survived a serious incident in a foreign country finds herself facing a choice in which there's almost nobody to help her. A foreign language, a foreign police force, foreign laws, the road back to where it happened, the prospect of repeating the details in interrogations for years. On the other side of the scale, the simple desire to keep on living. Discover Excursions keeps running through these years. Every season, hundreds of new students go through these tours. Marrakesh, Fez, Lisbon, Lagos, Gibraltar. Every time, the same guide, the same smile, the same photos on social media, the same familiar ending to the trips. The exchange programs don't get a single official complaint. The universities don't get a single warning. Statistically, nothing is happening. From the perspective of those who stay silent, a great deal is happening. It's just that, for now, those two worlds don't intersect. December of 2017 changes everything. By that point, 4 years have passed since the trip to Tangier. Gabrielle is no longer a 19-year-old student, but a grown woman who has lived with this weight long enough to understand. It doesn't dissolve on its own, and one evening she sits down at her computer and writes a post on social media. The post has it all. The guide's name, the company's name, the date of the trip, the city, a restrained description of what happened. No graphic details, no specifics, but no qualifiers either. She names things for what they are and does it publicly for the first time. For several hours, she just stares at the finished text. Then she clicks publish. In the first hours, the post gets a few dozen reactions. Gabrielle is braced for anything: accusations, attacks, attempts to discredit her. But the response turns out to be completely different. Women she has never met in her life start writing to her, with similar stories, with the same guide, with the same champagne, with the same morning. At first there are 2 of them, then 5, then 10, then 20. Within 24 hours, the post spreads through the network of American student communities, the same ones where Discover Excursions used to be praised. Former participants of the programs start messaging each other in private, closed groups open up, and new witnesses keep getting added. Within just a few weeks, more than 50 stories pile up. They differ in cities and dates, but they match in the kind of details you can't fake. The same scenario for the evening, the same familiar format of the game, similar physical sensations across different girls, similar gaps in memory. the same morning goodbye, with a smile and hugs. These coincidences are too precise to be coincidences. The women suddenly understand what none of them, alone, could ever see. This wasn't an accident with one girl. It wasn't a drunken mistake. It was a system that had been operating for years, and they had all been part of it without knowing about each other. The silence, 4 years of it for Gabrielle, more than 10 for the others, ends in just a few weeks. This wave doesn't die down. By the spring of 2018, the story breaks out of closed student chats and into the major media. American outlets publish pieces about the guide from Seville and the 50 American students. Spanish newspapers pick it up and compare what's happening to Me Too, which by that point is already shaking Hollywood and major corporations. The case earns nicknames that stick fast: the Predator of Seville, Manu White, the man with the long trail. In April of 2018, a heavyweight institution gets involved. The Audiencia Nacional, Spain's national court, opens an investigation. This is the body that usually handles major cases that cross regional borders. With Blanco, that makes sense. The episodes are scattered across Morocco, Portugal, Gibraltar, and several Spanish cities. Investigators start collecting victim testimony. Some of the interviews happen remotely through consulates, some on U.S. soil with the help of American counterparts. In parallel, his business starts to fall apart. The Discover Excursions website disappears. The social media pages are taken down. Bookings are canceled in droves. Reviews that for years had collected gushing 5 stars are replaced by furious comments from survivors and their supporters. The name Manu White goes from a marketing brand to a warning label. Blanco himself tries to defend himself at first. In a few interviews, he denies the accusations, talks about love affairs and consent, accuses the victims of wanting fame. Then he goes quiet. He pulls out of the public eye, stops giving interviews, hides from cameras. According to available information, he keeps living in Seville for some time, but avoids places where people might recognize him. U.S. universities react faster than Spanish justice does. One after another, they cut ties with the company. CIEE and CEA programs send out warnings to students already in Spain and update the materials for those about to head over. Coordinators receive a blacklist of recommended tours. It feels like a verdict is just around the corner. But this is exactly where the story unexpectedly slows down. The reason lies in how the system is built, not in any lack of will. Most of the episodes the women describe took place outside Spain: Tangier, Fez, Lisbon, Lagos, Gibraltar. Each case is, in formal terms, a different jurisdiction. To hold Blanco accountable for those episodes, you need international requests, joint investigations, witness extraditions. Each step takes months. Many take years. Right alongside, there's a second enemy: the statute of limitations. Some of the cases happened in 2010, 2011, 2012. Under Spanish law, the statute of limitations on cases like these is limited. By the time the investigation gets up to full speed, the formal window for prosecution has already closed on a number of episodes. Those stories remain in the case files as context, but they don't turn into charges that can be proven in court. The third barrier is the victims themselves. They live across the ocean. Every step of their participation requires travel, expensive flights, time off work. Many of them are by now married, with children, with careers. Coming back to a country tied to the worst memory of their lives, just to repeat the details in interrogations in front of a foreign judge, is an almost unbearable task. Some survivors agree only to written testimony. Some refuse entirely. The evidentiary base also works against the prosecution. Several years have passed. There are no medical examinations done right after the events. There are no objective traces left. There are no video recordings. What remains is one person's word against another's, and Blanco's defense builds its line on exactly that, insisting on the alcohol, on consent, on romantic episodes, and claiming the women are exaggerating. The investigation drags on year after year. The case moves from one body to another. Gradually, it slips off the front pages. By 2020, only specialty publications still cover it. By 2022, many of the participants stop hoping for a verdict at all. Blanco himself almost completely disappears from view during this period. It seems he's managed to wait out his own scandal. While the investigation slowly leafs through paperwork, journalists and the survivors themselves piece together a different picture, a portrait of how this scheme actually worked. And when the testimony of dozens of women is laid side by side, a remarkably consistent handwriting emerges. The victims are almost always one type: American girls, 18 to 22 years old, on an exchange program with no strong social ties in Spain. Most of them are in Seville for the first time, many in Europe for the first time. Many speak poor Spanish. They are the group with the fewest support points in a foreign country. The location is almost always one type. It's not Seville, where the girl has acquaintances and a dorm. It's a trip out. Tangier, Fez, Lagos. A small hotel in a foreign city where nobody knows her name and where she doesn't know who to turn to. The alcohol is almost always champagne. The guide takes the initiative with the drinks himself. The girls take it as ordinary courtesy. They have no reason to think anything is off. The truth or dare game is one of the recurring elements. The joking format lowers the distance. The conversation gradually becomes more personal, and the setting feels like an ordinary friendly party. The episodes themselves almost always happen in hotel rooms, often with friends sleeping nearby. The closeness of other people only makes it harder for the victim to talk about it later. She feels she'll definitely be asked why she didn't call for help. In the morning, a calm, friendly goodbye. Hugs, a smile, no awkwardness, no hint of an admission. This behavior takes away the last anchor on which the victim could build any certainty that something terrible actually happened that night. Each step on its own can be written off as coincidence. But when all the steps repeat from trip to trip, it stops being a coincidence. That's exactly the conclusion the investigation reached. Once there's a scheme, a simple and heavy question comes up. How many victims were there, really, across all the years Discover Excursions was running? The investigation will never have an exact answer to that. Officially, the case files contain testimony from more than 50 women. These are the ones who, after Gabrielle Vega's post, decided to write into open groups, give statements to journalists, or go to the police. Only some of them gave formal testimony in interrogations. Journalistic investigations cite different numbers. By their estimate, somewhere between 70 and 100 or more American students may have gone through the scheme over more than 10 years. That estimate is built on two simple things: the number of tours the company ran, and how many women in closed communities wrote about suspicious episodes but refused to come into the open. And yet, only 3 episodes make it to trial. 3. Out of dozens, possibly hundreds. Gabrielle Vega, Haley McAllis, and Carly Van Oostenbrugge. Their cases lined up with what Spanish justice could actually handle. The statute of limitations hadn't run out for them yet. They agreed to take part in the proceedings. The investigation had enough corroborating evidence. For the rest of the episodes, that evidence didn't exist. This creates a painful paradox. On the one hand, the survivors finally see the man on the defendant's bench. On the other hand, only a tiny fragment of what they actually went through made it into the indictment. Dozens of women learn the details of the trial from the news. They write words of support to the 3 official victims, and at the same time write about the feeling that their own story wasn't acknowledged. Out of that feeling grows something that wasn't there before: a community. A few closed chats turn into a living network. Women who don't know each other in person talk every day. Some write articles. Some speak at university gatherings to warn future groups. Legal justice lags behind, but human support stops lagging. In February of 2025, the law finally takes a step forward. The Audiencia Nacional issues a ruling in the case of Manuel Blanco Vela. By this point, more than 7 years have passed since Gabrielle's post. More than 11 since the trip to Tangier. The court finds Blanco guilty in the episodes involving the 3 American students whose cases made it into the proceedings. The total sentence comes to roughly 8.5 years in prison. 6 years for the episode with Gabrielle Vega in Morocco. Another 2.5 years or so for 2 episodes in Lagos, Portugal, with other girls. The exact figures vary slightly across sources. Some journalists cite a total of 9 years, others 8.5. That's tied to different interpretations of mitigating circumstances. The main one is the excessive length of the proceedings themselves. The court formally takes into account that several years passed between the first complaints and the verdict, and part of that time gets credited to the defendant. It's a paradoxical rule. The The investigation that couldn't move any faster ends up reducing the sentence of the very person it's catching. In addition to prison time, Blanco is barred from working as a guide for 7.5 years. He's ordered to pay compensation to the 3 officially recognized victims. The amounts run into tens of thousands of euros. The reaction from the victims is mixed. On one hand, relief. For the first time, the man whose name they had been mentioning in private conversations for years, with a tremor in their voice, gets the official status of a convicted offender. The court ruling is a public document they can now point to. On the other hand, a sense that the punishment doesn't match the crime. 8.5 years for 10 years of a systematic scheme, for dozens of broken lives, for an entire generation of students staying silent. Many survivors say it plainly. It's better than nothing, but it's far from everything. Blanco's defense immediately files an appeal with Spain's Supreme Court. The case heads into another round. A story that seemed finished turns out to be open for years to come. It's not just in the courtrooms that the case lives on. On March 27th of 2026, Netflix releases a documentary series called El Depredador de Sevilla, internationally The Predator of Seville. 3 episodes made by a European documentary team. The series is built unusually for the genre. It's not a reconstruction of the investigation, not a journey through the evidence, not a sit-down with detectives. It's the story told by the survivors themselves. The cameras follow the women, not the police. Gabrielle Vega agrees to appear on camera for the first time in this much detail and this openly. She walks step by step through what happened in 2013, through the years of silence, through the decision to hit publish, through the way the avalanche of responses changed her life. Other women appear alongside her. Some of them tell their story for the first time. Others are people who gave testimony to investigators but never showed their face on camera. Haley McCallis and Carly Van Oostenbrugge also agree to speak. The series weaves their voices in with those of survivors whose cases didn't make it into the verdict, but whose accounts match almost word for word. The reaction to the series is instant. It hits the top of the watch lists in dozens of countries within the first day. Social media fills up with discussion all over again. A new wave of testimony comes in from women who only just learn about the case now. Some of them are no longer American. They are students from Canada, Britain, Australia, Germany, who back in their student years ended up on the same tours, and for many years couldn't quite believe that what happened to them was, in fact, what happened. U.S. universities go back to the topic of safety and exchange programs. The agenda once again includes mandatory certification of local contractors, training for coordinators, hotlines for students who run into trouble abroad. Spanish media once again raised the question of statutes of limitations and why foreign victims are so vulnerable in the face of local law. The case stops being the local story of one guide and one company. It becomes an international conversation. These discussions don't quiet down, even after the cameras shut off. Blanco is in prison. His appeal at the Supreme Court of Spain moves slowly, with no loud headlines. No admissions, no letters to the survivors, no public expressions of remorse come from him. He remains the same figure he was before the verdict. For the survivors, this is a painful truth they have to live with. The verdict closes 3 episodes but leaves dozens open. Legally, there's a period at the end. Humanly, there isn't. But almost none of these women think silence would have been the better choice. Gabrielle does not regret the post from 2017. Haley does not regret agreeing to give testimony. Carly does not regret the public interviews. They say it in the series, in articles, at conferences on student safety abroad. An imperfect verdict is better than a perfect silence. The Blanco case becomes a turning point for a new approach in the exchange program industry. Universities start introducing protocols for vetting local contractors. Mandatory orientation modules appear, in which students are walked through how to recognize a manipulation pattern. International hotlines are set up, where girls can get help in their own language without having to walk into a foreign police station. This story shows a few simple things: that a beautiful facade is not the same as safety. That trust in a local guide should not be automatic just because he's smiling. That one young woman with one social media post can bring down a wall that stood for years. And that a system which fails to react to those signals for years can, sometimes, finally turn to face them. The name El Príncipe de Sevilla, which Blanco gave himself, now sounds nothing like the way he intended. Nobody calls him a prince anymore. they call him something else. And unlike the first one, that name was not given to him by himself, but by the women whose voices he had spent years assuming were safely silent.